Today is a big day, ladies and gentlemen. It is Apple earnings day. I want to look at all the numbers here that Apple has reported. I want to give my opinion on those numbers. I want to look at the stock price after hours. I want to talk about my reaction to stock price and why it is moving that way. We got a lot to get into here today in today's video, guys. Apple is the one company in the world that I say affects every single person, regardless if you directly own Apple stock or not. Why? Because it's the most held company out there on 401ks. A good chance if you have a 401k of some kind, it probably has Apple shares in it. It affects the entire semiconductor industry. Every single semiconductor name out there is affected positively or negatively by Apple. And just Apple is the biggest, most profitable company in the world. So their weight on the indexes can push stocks up or push stocks down in general. So it literally affects every single person out there. There's no way you're not affected by a company, regardless if you directly own them or not, guys. So a lot to get into here today. Hit a thumbs up if you enjoy this, as always, all right? So as far as the headline numbers, very, very strong numbers here. So revenue up 20% year over year. Keep in mind, this company, has somewhere around $1 trillion market cap on it. To still be posting these type of numbers is just ridiculous. EPS was up 41% year over year. Services revenue hit $10 billion, all right? $10 billion, which is a new record all time for that category. That is just a massive, massive growth beast. That's what one of my biggest focuses when I look at Apple as a company. I think about the services revenue first and foremost, okay? They said, we concluded a record year with our best September quarter ever, growing double digits in every geographic segment. We set September quarter revenue records for iPhone and wearables and all-time quarterly records for services and Mac, said the CFO. We generated $19.5 billion in operating cash flow and returned over $23 billion to shareholders in dividends and share repurchases in the September quarter, bringing total capital returned in fiscal 2018 to almost $90 billion, all right? So Apple is providing the sandbag guidance. I crossed out following sandbag, it's a running joke that Apple loves to kind of sandbag their guidance a lot of times for its coming up quarter here, okay? So they're guiding out for revenue between $89 billion and $93 billion, a gross margin of 38% to 38.5%, operating expenses of $8.7 billion to $8.8 billion, all right? As far as the tax rate, they're looking at somewhere around a 16.5% rate there. Apple's board of directors has declared a cash dividend of 73 cents per share, which is going to be payable on November 15th to shareholders as of the close of November 12th. So if you are a shareholder of Apple, or if you're trying to get it in for the dividend, you need to get in by November 12th, and you can receive 73 cents per share in dividends there, all right? Real quick before we kind of dive into all these other numbers, just very, very strong numbers. Like the revenue growth of 20%, EPS of 41%. For any company, those numbers are amazing. Never mind a company that has a pretty low valuation on it like Apple does, and never mind for a company that is as massive as Apple is. These numbers are pretty extraordinary, all right? Now, if we look here into some more specific data, there's a few things I want to look at. First is if we look all the way on that right-hand column, that's going to show year-over-year growth in revenue depending on the segment. So you have the Americas, you have Europe, you have Greater China, Japan, the rest of Asia Pacific, and you're going to find every single market grew at a double-digit percent, okay? The Greater China was the weakest, coming in at 16%, but these numbers are amazing. Look at the rest of Asia up 22%, Japan up 34%, the Americas, which you think would be a saturated market, up 19%. These numbers are just really amazing. Now if we look all the way to the left-hand side, if we look at just the Q4 2018 numbers, something we notice here, Greater China is still much, much smaller than Europe as far as revenue goes for Apple, okay? Greater China contributed about $11.4 billion in the quarter, whereas Europe contributed over $15 billion. Over the next 3 to 5 years, I do not think that is going to stay that way. In my opinion, Greater China will be the #2 market if you're looking at this from a 3 to 5 year perspective. There's no way, in my opinion, that Europe is going to stay the #2 biggest market for Apple out there. I think China is just going to grow bigger. We do have such a bigger population there that's so tech focused. As Apple has released bigger and bigger phones, that applies more to the Chinese people, because in China it's very different than someone like myself in America, okay? I have a brand new Mac sitting over over there on the desk. I have iPads, then I have my phone, then I have MacBook Air. Like I have a ton of different devices. A lot of the Chinese like to just use their smartphone for pretty much everything. It's their everything device. So I think as Apple has kind of made bigger and bigger devices, that's going to apply bigger and bigger into the Chinese market. And I think if you're looking at this from a 3 to 5 year perspective, I think China is going to end up being Apple's #2 segment overall, eventually, probably within the next 3 to 5 years, all right? If we look here, iPhone grew very nice in the quarter, 29%. iPad shrunk 15%. Now, they just released some new iPads yesterday with some actually 2 days ago with some very interesting specs there. So that should help boost the iPad business. Mac was up 3%. Services and other products is what I'm really paying attention to. Services grew 17% year over year. Very strong growth still in the services category. And the other products category is an absolute growth beast right now. 31% revenue growth in that quarter, year over year, okay? Other products meaning, things like the Apple Watch or headphones, things like that. So that's a very, very fast growing category there, okay? Very impressive numbers, all right? Now, if we look here, if we add up the long-term marketable securities with the short-term marketable securities and the cash and cash equivalents, we're getting a number of around $237 billion there, just kind of sitting on that balance sheet. And keep in mind, now we're going into actually Apple's most profitable quarter, so that number should go to maybe 250. Even if they buy shares back, even with the dividends paid, it should go to 250 plus after this quarter. Should be an absolute, amazing number. Like, just have that sitting on the balance sheet and cash equivalents and marketable securities, like, it's ridiculous, guys. Absolutely ridiculous, all right? Something I like to pay attention to here is in the cash flow. You're going to find that net income grew very nice year over year. 48 billion they did the previous year. Now this past year, or this current year, they ended up doing 59 billion in net income. Very strong growth there, okay? Very strong growth. By the way, the EPS is looking even much higher than that just because they bought so many shares back. But if we look here, as far as dividends, I think this company has a great opportunity to be a dividend paying beast in the future, okay? They only paid out a little under $14 billion in dividends this past year. So in my opinion, as the net income continues to rise, EPS continues to rise substantially, I think the Apple is a great opportunity to be a massive dividend payer in the future. A company that will pay out $30 to $50 billion per year in dividends long term. I think what they pay out in dividends right now are really going to pale in comparison to if you're looking at a 3 to 5 year span, what they're going to be able to do, and especially if you're looking at like a 10-year horizon. I think this will become a big dividend stock in the future, and a stock that a lot of people will invest in, not just because it's Apple and because they have certain things going on, but because they look at it as, wow, this is going to be a dividend beast in the future, all right? Now, as far as what analysts were expecting versus what the company actually did, earnings came in, it was a beat. Revenue came in, it was a beat, okay? Two nice beats there. iPhone sales missed a bit. They came in at 46.89 million versus analysts expecting 47.5. So all those numbers are cute, slight miss on iPhone sales, beat on revenue, beat on earnings. But the number I was personally most impressed with was the iPhone average selling price, okay? The ASP for iPhone came in at $793, okay? That means the average iPhone that sold was nearly $800. Guys, that killed what analysts were expecting. Analysts were expecting that number to be around $750. So just a massive beat there. I think that's something that a lot of the bearish people on Apple haven't been able to really comprehend, is how these average selling prices just continue to explode for iPhone. And I don't think it's going to slow down. I think this is a trend that will continue. I think eventually average selling prices will get to an $850 to $900 number over the next few years. I don't think this is slowing down. If anything, I think average selling prices will continue to creep up the next few years, all right? Now, as far as this stock reacting after hours, it's reacting negatively. It's down around 6.7% after hours, down around $15 per share as of taking the screenshot. And this is after the conference call is over and whatnot. So this is probably what the stock will open up at tomorrow, probably down around a 7% number, assuming what happened after hours continues into the trading day. But why is this? Why are, some investors at least selling off this stock after hours? And I think for some investors, it comes back to one question and one question only, and it's, can iPhone units grow anymore? This is the big question, and I'm going to answer this question. And this is really the only negative you can poke at with Apple right now. You can't poke at the EPS, you can't poke at the overall revenue, you can't poke at their other categories, okay, like wearables and whatnot. You can't really poke at the services category category. You can't even poke at other, specific regions. Every single region is growing strong. The company's growing massively. Revenue's up 20%. EPS up 41%. Valuation's very fair. I think it's somewhere around a forward P of 15. So you can't really say anything negative about Apple other than, can iPhone units ever grow again? And I think that's on the top of investors' mind right now, thinking, is this category dead as far as growth in units go? Is it just going to be an ASP story? Maybe they can keep pushing up, average selling prices and make a little more profit per iPhone, but they're never going to be able to grow units again. So if you're looking at this from the next year perspective, year to maybe 2 years, I don't expect you to see much growth in iPhone units up until something comes out called the 5G iPhone, okay? The 5G iPhone is either going to come out in the fall of 2019, which I don't think it will come out in the fall of 2019. I think it's going to be the fall of 2020, okay? Which basically means it's around 2 years from now, or 1 year and 11 months from now is when I think the first 5G iPhone is going to come out. In my opinion, that will be the next super cycle in iPhone sales, okay? That will be the next super cycle, similar to what happened when iPhone 6 came out, where it was a much bigger device, and a lot of people had been dying for a bigger iPhone, and you just saw iPhone sales really explode when iPhone 6 came out. And so far since then, you kind of seen, gradual increases in iPhone orders over time. Some models are weaker than others and whatnot. But in my opinion, if you're looking for big unit growth, you're going to have to wait at least 1 to 2 years until you start to see some of that big unit growth when the actual 5G iPhone. I think that will be the first device to come out for Apple that, and that's just not going to be a boost for Apple. That's going to be a boost for the entire smartphone industry. We've been on 4G LTE for so many years now. That's just kind of, where we've been at. I think the market is going to really start getting excited about 5G, and that's going to get to be more of a mainstream thing over the next year or two. So I think that will be the next super cycle, but you're going to have to wait about a year or two for that if you're looking for iPhone units to really grow in a massive way, okay? But, over the next year or two, the company's still going to be able to grow EPS and revenue and everything across the board at a very high rate, just because of so many different things they have going for them. Average selling prices, the services category, the other category. They have so many growth vectors for the company right now that even if iPhone units over the next year or two are just stagnant, it really doesn't matter in the end, because EPS and revenue are still going to be able to increase probably at double-digit clips per year. So, but get ready for that next super cycle. That will be the 5G super cycle, in my opinion. That will push iPhone units up to a major growth vector again for the company. So that's my opinion on Apple earnings. We kind of, dived into the numbers there. Let me know what you guys thought about those Apple numbers. I would love to hear from you guys. Let me know if you actually own Apple stock. I would love to hear from you guys in that comment section. As always, thank you for watching and have a great day.